What's up, Power Warriors? Today is Tuesday, May 30th, 2023. I got it right this week. My name is Jared McAllister, the virtual solar pro, alongside Mr. Jonathan Bernasso. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, share with your fellow solarpreneurs. What's up, Jonathan? How you doing, brother?
Good morning. Happy Memorial Day weekend to you all. Hope you had a great weekend. I think Tom Cotter's back from vacation. Is that true?
Word
No,
on the street.
Tom's still on vacation. No, I'm back.
Must be nice. How you doing, Tom?
Freedom lifestyle, man. It's a nice thing. It's like I'm going on vacation for a while. See you guys.
I'll take an extra week vacation. No big deal.
I didn't go to Portugal or anything like that, but you know.
Right on, right on. Jared, how you
Welcome back,
doing?
Tom. I'm good, man. Yeah, had a really awesome Memorial weekend. Did a little fishing, got the kids out on the lake, a little daddy daycare. When my wife was down there living her best life, she flew down to Napa, California, where she was at Bottle Rock and saw some amazing bands for 3-4 days, and picked her up at the airport yesterday, and she's about half dead. So she's in recovery mode, and it's Tuesday. We're back at it.
Very cool. Great training lined up today as well.
Incredible training lined up. Super excited for that. So let's jump into it. Let's get these success stories rocking and rolling like we do every single week. And yeah, if you have a success story you'd like to share, go ahead and put it in the chat, raise your hand. And we're going to focus this one around recruiting. So team building, if you have a new team member that you would like to talk about and give praise to and how you brought them aboard onto your team, feel free to share that with the team. So Eric Goldstein quickly had his hand raised, would like to share a success story. Go ahead, brother. What you got?
What's happening, guys? Brought on to the platform Mary. She's up in LA, solar pro, sold 100 plus projects with other companies. And she went working on Memorial Day and signed her first contract yesterday with Powur.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Congrats, Mary. How did you connect with Mary, Eric? If you could drop a little nugget, maybe.
Yeah, so Bobby had connected us. She was looking for a local leader in the area that's done like face-to-face networking, warm networking type stuff.
Very cool. So Eric, for those of you who don't know, stepping up, helping San Diego, helping on the leadership, helping in the Power Days in persons, and Bobby notices those people. And if you connect with Bobby, building with Bobby, you might get someone. So, you know, set your goals high. And if you want to go down that path, you could get rewarded as well for stepping up. So nice work, Eric.
Cool.
John, did you want to share how you recruited 4 or 5 people recently?
Yeah, it's 5 actually. It was pretty awesome. I did a lot of good conversations on Facebook groups and talked to some people, some of which you had already talked to other Power people, but just were like, one guy said, he goes, somebody reached out to me. They sent me a 15-minute video. I haven't heard from them in a week and a half. And I said, well, I'm pretty responsive. I go, but you really have to follow your heart. You got to go with whatever makes the most sense for you. I said, this is supposed to be a long-term play. I'm really all about, you know, making sure that we're not scarcity mindset with these folks. And I really want them to feel like we're a really supportive family. You know, I mean, if you're in my team or you're not in my team, I'm still going to help you. And so I tell them, I go, look, it's really about making sure it's a good fit for you. But, you know, it's, yeah, reach out to people, talk to people. It's one of them was a personal, I just happened to have a conversation with him, and then he had a conversation with somebody else who said, yeah, maybe they might be interested in something, you know, social media wise. They had been talking to some people, but they don't know if it'll be a good fit, and they connected me. And so really just keep telling people that you have something that might be interesting for them, might be a good fit, might not be. You know, doing a takeaway is really important because it's not a sales tactic as much as it's legit. You know, I don't know if it's going to work for them, and I really don't want to fill my team with a bunch of people who aren't doing anything. I want this to be right for everybody. It's you know, I don't get anything for signing people up. other than John Bernossa going, "Hey, John Bodman's nice private jet."
Got to get them to that first deal. The sooner
Yeah.
the better. And
Absolutely.
being available, getting on a Zoom with them, that in-person connection. Some of us are really busy. And yeah, that's awesome, John.
Thanks.
Oh, man. Well, I'll give a shout out to Alvin Ramka, who is a roofer out in Florida, who messaged me last week. He saw one of my Instagram reels and shot me a message and literally said, "Dude, I haven't been able to sleep because of how excited I am about what you're offering. Let's hook up." Join the platform. And now he's got about 4 or 5 deals ready to enter in and get this thing rocking and rolling. So Alvin, you listening, you're on the call. Welcome, brother. Welcome to the team. So pretty
Nice.
cool.
Bill, let's do one more success story. Recruiting,
Yeah.
folks, if you got to recruit.
Last one, I just want to introduce David Kirkby, who's on the call today, who's from Minneapolis, Minnesota, a non-power state, who's recently leaving the arena of personal coaching to get into power and wants to blow it up with anticipation maybe of doing something in Minnesota eventually, but certainly getting power going all over the country. So David's excited. He's getting ready to go. So we're going to put some people in his business.
Very cool. Congrats, Bill. Welcome to the team as well. And real quick shout out here in the chat to Charles, playing some golf with some former Sunrun colleagues. And I had dinner with a Sunrun colleague out here in Vegas last night with my brother. Sunrun's not in a great place right now, guys. A lot of people at Sunrun aren't super happy. Leads are down, quotas are up. A lot of them are getting squeezed right now. When they see that they can make $6 grand, $7, $8 grand a deal on the same deal they made, $3 grand at Sunrun, and they're putting in their referrals and we get better equipment, better pricing, it's a no-brainer. So man, a lot of Sunrun people could use a better option right now.
For sure. Well, very good. Thank you everyone for sharing your success stories. Jonathan, should we move on to this awesome training we have this week?
Absolutely. We've all been missing and highly anticipating Tom Cotter's power perspective that he gives us every week. So let's jump to Tom.
Thanks, Jonathan. One of the things that I've been doing is many of you know that Jonathan and Rick Joseph and myself and others are kind of interested in tracking our sleep and other biohacking, performance focused type stuff. And this comes out of that, but over these last few weeks, I've been doing a lot of research and moving in some different directions with my own health. And I've got something I want to share with you. You are remarkable, not just you, Jonathan, not just you, Jarrett, but everyone on this call. And here's why. Each of our bodies contains between 30 and 100 trillion cells, depending on our age. And each one of these cells houses DNA, which consists of strands coiled together. In my 6th grade report that I wrote many years ago was on deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA. I still have that report. I got an A+ on that report from Mrs. Kiesling, my teacher. So if you were to unravel these strands and connect them, the DNA in each cell would stretch 6 feet long. And when you multiply this by the number of cells in your body, the total length of DNA would be enough to travel to the moon and back an incredible 555,000 times. And to put this in perspective, only 12 people have ever walked on the moon, or a really good stage, depending on what you think about the moon landing and the moonwalk. Yet, in every breath you take, in every step you make, every thought you have, every action you complete, your body's DNA has traveled to the moon and back 555,000 times each day. So the point of this is, don't you dare ever think that you are too small to have a world-changing dream. Don't you dare think that you can't do something. And don't you dare think, but that person isn't going to like my business presentation, or this person isn't going to like what they talk about on Power Hour. I can't invite them. I can't do this. So don't you dare even care what other people think. So don't dare. See, this is one of the reasons why I think, other than our mission and our vision statement to become the largest clean energy platform on planet Earth, it's one reason why I think we call our annual convention for power, why we call it Power World, because so many people leave realizing that they can change the world, starting with their own world. They realize, hey, I can do this. Sure, people who attend, they get the tactics, they get the strategies, they get the hacks, they get to hear from all of our different leaders and speakers. But the main thing that they walk away with when we're together in person, it's a little bit different than virtual. The main thing that they walk away with is belief and the realization of, I can do this and no one's going to tell me otherwise. I'm going to go to the top. I'm going to hit my goals. And I don't care if somebody else says this isn't going to work or I can't do it. I'm going to do this. So today, take this understanding and this reality that you are amazing and that you can do the goals that you have set in front of yourself. Jonathan, back to you.
Tom, there's only one thing to say after that. All right, that's enough.
That's what I thought too.
I almost went into song at that part, you know.
We
Thank you,
really got to work on our production. Holy smokes.
I appreciate it. We are all special beings with these human bodies, experiences on this planet. Gotta recognize that for sure. All right. Let's do some quick updates and hand it off to our trainer today. So as always, let me minimize some screens here. June 3rd, guys, this Saturday, you really want to mark your calendars. We're going to see brand new enterprise slide decks. We're going to have epic training. Read your newsletter for more information and a breakdown of this Saturday's event. Block off a few hours if you can. It's going to be epic. And like Tom said, Power World is our in-person 2-3 day event. There's going to be a VIP section this will come soon, but this will be September 7th and 9th as well. So after that, let me see here. We got Mentor Factory. That is 2 days in person, July 21st and 22nd, 9 to 5 in Downey. JC Rangel runs this event. So go to Mentor Factory 2023 to get a ticket. Danny Pesci is a speaker. Jarrett will be a speaker. Myself, JC Rangel. 2 days, people flying from Florida, Texas, even Idaho to attend this event. So this will be epic as well. Just a friendly reminder, we have lots of trainings. Every Monday, JC has a training. This Tuesday training. We have lease and PPA training with Sonova, Rachel and Jay. You should know how to use Sonova or have portal access or work with a tier 3 that has Sonova access and come to this meeting with questions. And then every Thursday, Melissa Dawson does enterprise training. If you're looking to be enterprise or seller pro or bring on a lead gen or any of this stuff, make sure to attend that. Women of Power Thursdays. This Friday, guys, if you want to make a note, June 2nd, Chris Bernasso, one of the top recruiters in the entire company, at 9 Pacific, he'll be hosting Building with Bobby. So if you're looking to recruit, have passive income, make hundreds or thousands every Friday without getting out of bed, you really want to attend Building with Bobby's every Friday, and so much more on Power Calendar. Market development meetings, you should be attending your local market development meeting. And we have Enphase, Solaredge, all the different market meetings, and so much more to come. All right. So with that, I wonder if, man, I want to, let me see if this fancy thing works real quickly before I hand it off. Tap screen mirror. Give me 1 second. I just want to see if I can show my screen here. Solar JB screen mirroring. Sorry, 1 second. MacBook Pro 14-inch. All right, I'm trying this fancy thing where I'm sharing my screen on my cell phone with you guys because I want to introduce the next speaker in an epic way. But we have a training today from Solaredge, which I think is really important with batteries. And if is this working, Jarrett? Can you see my?
Yep,
Working.
it's looking good, brother.
So guys, I'm pumped because my solar just turned on a few weeks ago. And I communicate this enthusiasm when I'm on my calls pitching a NEM 3, because we all know batteries are basically essential now in California. And I get excited and I say, dude, look at my solar here. It's producing on the roof. Right now, my battery's at 100%. My EV charger's not connected. And I can look at production and consumption and look at the sun came up this morning at 6. Right now, I'm earning credits back to the grid. And I just get so pumped about it. You can see my battery here. I could change the backup reserve that has to be stored. There's this fancy thing called Weather Guard with weather events. And you can control the EV plug, and you can even see the layout of my roof. And I do all that, and I say, you're getting the latest technology with this battery. And I get really excited about it, if you can tell. And it's awesome what we get to do, especially with batteries, especially with net metering 3 and the price points that we get. Honestly, if we go head to head with anyone on batteries or Solaredge, not most companies even have Solaredge batteries, to be honest. So with that, Jason is an amazing account manager with Solaredge and a big partner of Powur, sponsor of Powur, and he's going to be teaching us about Solaredge technology, some tools, maybe touching on the inverter and battery solutions they have. So it applies to all states, but this will be a little bit important for California and NEM 3 as well. So Jason, take it away, my friend.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. Happy Tuesday, everyone. I hope everyone had a great Memorial Day weekend. It's really great to see some familiar faces on here. For those that I haven't had a chance to meet, virtually in person, my name is Jason Dully. I'm the strategic account manager for Solaredge, managing the Powur account for Solaredge. And so, obviously, NEM 3 has really changed a lot in the industry here in California. And I think what's really exciting about that is that it's really helped us to bring on some new tools to help you out there go sell our values and land more deals. And I think what we're seeing a lot of in the industry right now is sort of that we pulled through 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months worth of 2023 demand before that April 14th cutoff. And it's exciting now because what I'm hearing from a lot of accounts and some power ups out there is that the volume and the sales are starting to actually return, and hopefully you're seeing some of that out there as well. And so what I'll be here to talk about today is sort of the values of how you can win with our battery technology, but more importantly, ultimately what tools we've helped build for you as a group out there to go sell effectively. And so are you guys able to see my screen okay? Showing up okay, Jonathan?
Yep, looks good.
Perfect. So I'm going to go through a battery modeling software after we go through a few slides here. That is free of charge. We're also working on integrating this software directly into Powur Vision through an API as well. So this is a bit of a preview on what you'll be able to ideally be able to access very soon through Powur Vision. So let's talk a little bit about winning in NEM 3. So I'll cover a lot of this pretty quickly here, but as a lot of obviously the export values have changed. And so essentially now it's not advantageous to export power, although there are certain times I'll highlight here in a few moments here where that does make sense. And a lot of this technology that we're going to be talking about here today on the slide deck here is going to be built directly into our designer tool, including the export rates where there's more value on exporting that energy. And so NEM 3 will only be a 9-year term, not 20 years as before, just to recap there. True ups will now be monthly and not annually. I think that's a great thing. I think ultimately allowing a homeowner to know that, things are happening faster from a true up perspective versus, 12 months down the road, like if there was an issue with the system, a monthly true up is beneficial in that regard right there. As a lot of you probably know, you can't oversize more than 50% of the previous 12 months of usage there. So in September now, a lot of the conversation around exporting energy has been that you don't want to export, obviously, because there's no value in it. Well, in September, obviously, there is a lot of value. If you look at the screen here, you can basically, between 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock through September, depending on the utility, you're able to export energy, and the utility will pay a homeowner around, we'll say, roughly $3 a kilowatt hour. And so when I get into the battery modeling software here shortly, it's going to highlight how that technology has been built to maximize the return on those export hours automatically for the homeowner. No programming, nothing. So I'll cover that here later. And so one of the values that you're going to find too using a Solaredge battery is we can export up to 5 kilowatts of power. And when you compare that to our microinverter friends, that's about 30% more energy. So when you do hit those really high peak hours of September, that means ultimately that the homeowner is going to get a 30% quicker return on those export hours at that point in time, because we can dump basically our full battery, a 10 kilowatt hour battery, in 2 hours, whereas it would take our microinverter friends about 3 hours to dump that whole battery. So ultimately, the export returns are greater for the homeowner at those period of times there. Let's see here. So effectively, when you look at the market now, there's obviously 2 types of homeowners. And one of the things I want to highlight here is, I think in the past we've had some conversations around batteries, right? And batteries enable backup, And so one of the things I think it'd be helpful to think about when you're out there selling is the verbiage, the words that you use to basically, talk about these new systems, right? We're not selling just PV anymore. We're selling PV plus battery. But when you start bringing the battery name into the conversation, obviously inserts a little bit of confusion potentially. And so some ways you can get around that is to start talking about, what you're selling a homeowner is a storage system. So you're highlighting that it's not a backup system in this case, storage for self-consumption. So we're basically using that battery in a self-consumption system, as you guys would call it, as a power saver system. We're using that battery as a big bucket to store any extra solar energy. So previously, we would essentially use the grid. We would export energy to the grid and then buy it back for the same rate later in the day. Instead, now what we're doing is we're basically just charging that battery throughout the day, using that battery as a big bucket of solar energy. And so that's a storage for bill savings. And that's really what we've been selling for probably 90% of all systems in NEM 2. And the math will still apply. And so we'll go through some of that here later. And then obviously for those homeowners who do value backup power, they're in those areas where they've had a lot of outages. Now we're talking about batteries for backup power. And so it's a change in how you think and how you present the words to highlight to the homeowner that, we're using this equipment in a different manner. Because when you put a battery on a system, the battery doesn't really enable backup power. There's a thing called a transfer switch that enables backup power, and that's what basically takes the home and the islands from the grid. So what a battery really is at core is just a big bucket of solar energy, an extender of solar energy for how many hours you can use it. So on that thread, we have a few different options, and what we call our self-consumption battery is the rate saver. And I know Powur's calling it a power saver, I believe. So that is a self-consumption battery only. And ultimately what we're going to do there is, charge the battery throughout the day with any extra solar that is not being used by the home. And then obviously we're going to be discharging that battery energy into the home during those peak times. There is no backup enabled. So if the grid goes down, obviously you're highlighting to the homeowner that ultimately, this is a grid tied self-consumption system. There is no backup capability. And then there are the 2 different options for backup power. That's essential load or full home load. And so one quick thing to note on here is, the value that we have with basically a DC coupled system. So when you think about an AC coupled system, you have an inverter underneath each singular panel. And then when you have an AC coupled battery, with a microinverter over there, you have 12 microinverters built into that battery. So what that means then is ultimately, not only now does the PV on the roof count as backfeed, but currently the battery does as well, because now you're adding additionally, essentially 12 more microinverters to that system. What we're doing is, because our battery doesn't have any inverters into it, the battery is wired directly into the inverter, and it shares the same breaker space. So when Jonathan showed his system earlier, basically on one single 40 amp breaker, he had his PV, his battery, and his EV charger sitting on that same breaker. So now we're reducing the amount of main panel upgrades that are required substantially. And that's ultimately going to help you sell a more cost-effective system. Costs have gone up on systems because we're adding batteries. The math will still work, but if you can strip out an extra $4,000 in cost, then ultimately, that's going to help you close more deals, we believe. And what we can do here is we allow up to 200% oversizing. So essentially, if you have a, let's say a 200 amp service, let's make it a 100 amp service. That's pretty common out here in California. On a 100 amp service, what we can do is we can put up to 7.6 kilowatts of solar on the roof, 3 batteries on the wall, and an EV charger. And so when you start thinking about how we can close deals faster and get them installed faster, that's the value right there. And so just to reiterate that, on a 100 amp service, we can go up to 7.6 kilowatts of solar on the roof, 3 batteries on the wall, and an EV charger. On your 200 amp service, we're now going up to 15 kilowatts on the roof with 3 batteries and an EV charger as well. And that EV charger is something that I'm working on getting added to the Powur platform currently. In a self-consumption system for NEM 3, that's going to be another great advantage, because if the PV is producing, the batteries happen to be full, with a smart EV like we have, we're able to then take any excess solar PV and charge the car if it's plugged in. Losing solar energy in an M3 world really hurts the ROI of a system. And so we can find ways of taking any excess solar that the battery can't absorb or the house can't consume and putting it in a car, that homeowner is effectively getting free gas in those moments of time there. So stay tuned. Hopefully that'll be added to the platform soon, and we'll have more to talk about then. The other dynamic here is really clipping avoidance. Because we have a module that's producing DC power on the roof and a DC battery that's connected to that module through the inverter, we're going to take any clipped energy and charge the battery. And this is where you're going to really see a significant increase in the ROI, because if we're about 7% more efficient. And then if you say you're clipping, let's say, the peak times of the summer and August or whatever, maybe you're clipping at 3%. That means that we can offer a system that's now 10% more efficient, produces 10% more energy. And the ROI in a system in those dynamics comes down really fast. And again, we'll talk a lot about that here shortly. So jumping forward here, that's some value on the spec side, the equipment side. What we're really talking about here when we do a self-consumption or even a backup system, because they operate grid tied the same way, is the idea that we want to offset the high peak rates. Right now I'm in SoCal Edison territory, and my peak rates are 55 cents a kilowatt hour. Down in San Diego Gas and Electric right now in the summertime, I think actually starting tomorrow maybe, or June 1, I think they jump up to 82 cents a kilowatt hour. So what that means then is every time you put a battery on the wall and you charge it with solar energy, you're offsetting, in my area, 55 cents or $5.50 a day for one single 10 kilowatt hour battery. In San Diego, that's $8.20 a day. And so that's really where the value is with batteries right now. It's to offset these high peak rates. And that's where the math really starts to make sense. All right, so I've been talking a lot here. Let me run through the chat here. Any questions here from the group? Any questions before I move on a little bit here?
Owen was asking, if there's 2 inverters, does that speed up the export? My guess is no, but I don't know.
It would, yes. So that's part of the system sizing there, because obviously if you have, now there's other dynamics at play. And so what we'll run through in the modeling here is what we've built to help answer those questions a little more simply. The reason it would actually speed up the export speed, if I'm understanding the question right, is because you're basically doubling the amount of power that the system has. So if you had, let's say, on a 200 amp service, I guess it wouldn't work. Let's say you had, instead of one 3.8 kilowatt inverter, you had two of them. You're now exporting at 7.6 kilowatts as a system whole. So basically, the more AC power you have, obviously, the more you can export. So it just really depends on the system design, though. I mean, you're kind of sizing the system based on typically on the main service panel. 100 amp, obviously putting a 3.8 kilowatt inverter. So if you do have more AC power, then obviously, yes, you're going to be able to export more energy. Now that may come at a cost though, because it may mean that you're triggering more main panel upgrades, but that's sort of where this battery modeling software comes in to help answer some of those questions. Is it more advantageous to charge the homeowner for that main panel upgrades because now I can export more energy in these high rates in September, or is it better to not do that? And so I'll run through some of those numbers at some level here shortly. Any other questions there? John, I will send out this slide deck if it's not going to be, if it's not being recorded or whatever, but we'll send that out to you guys here today, no matter what. Let's see, Larry, can you repeat 100 amp panel? Looks like Tom answered that correctly. Thanks, Tom. Any other questions here before I move on?
Looks good.
Cool, sounds good. All right, so one quick thing to note on here before I flip over to our modeling software here is just a reminder of the partnership that we have here with Powur. And so starting back last year on October 1st, we kicked off a new partnership agreement with Powur. And there's a few things that came in with that agreement there. And basically the first one is what we call enhanced services. So enhanced services is an exclusive program that we offer to only key partners. And what that means is that we're basically monitoring Powur's fleet, and every other day we'll monitor their fleet. And if an inverter fails, we will create that RMA for Powur. In certain markets, California included here, we will not only create that RMA for Powur for the inverter, but we'll also go roll trucks for Powur as well. And so we're going to capture that failure if it happens right away. And so now the impact to the homeowner is diminished because not only are we scanning the fleet every other day, but we're able to now accelerate the shipments and the servicing of those inverters too. Now, we also have a new program out there that we just launched with Powur as part of this enhanced services program, probably about a week or two ago. And it's what we're calling preventative RMA. So we build an algorithm where we are basically now, if there's an inverter that is working right now, but it's flagging certain things based on this algorithm, if it triggers this algorithm, we'll actually proactively create the RMA before the system or the inverter fails. And so now the homeowner is going to have this amazing experience where basically they'll get an email saying, hey, we're going to replace your inverter. Even though it's still working, we feel it's probably going to fail in the next week or two, but now we'll be able to go there before the inverter fails, ideally, replace that inverter, and then the homeowner, and hopefully we're going to turn what typically was a negative experience into a positive one. So that's the enhanced services program. The other piece of it is a rebate that we're offering for every time you sell a Solaredge system. So the first one is a downtime credit. So in case there's instances where we don't capture the RMA, it takes us too long to go resolve that. The impact to the homeowner can hurt, right? It could be a high bill. And so what we're offering there is every time you sell a Solaredge system, 0.5 cents a watt will go into a fund that will allow Powur to compensate homeowners for downtime at Powur's discretion. So if we don't get what we should do in a timely manner, if that homeowner happens to be down for 3 or 4 weeks because we couldn't resolve this particular site, there's an extra layer of protection for the homeowner where we will compensate through Powur for downtime for lost production. And then the other 0.5 cents watt goes to you as sales reps. So every time you sell Solaredge, not only will you hopefully be able to close more deals, but we'll also compensate you for that as well at 0.5 cents a watt. Any questions on these programs here before I move on? See some questions in the chat there.
I answered 2 in the chat.
Yep.
If you look at the knowledge base and type Solaredge, guys, these enhanced services was referring to, I typed the article there. You can
Thank you.
actually see the enhanced services map there in red. In the chat, I replied to Fina, and then yeah, check out both of those links for that stuff too.
Yeah, this is a program that we have exclusively with Powur. You know, there's no other account that I'm aware of across the country that has access to not only compensation for you as a sales rep, but ultimately proactive monitoring through Solaredge and a downtime credit. So I think it's something as you're selling that is a great sales feature, some value add that you can share with the homeowner, because if you're competing against Sunrun or any other big name out there in the California market or any market across the US, actually, this is a piece of value I think that no rep out there can technically compete against right there. So use it as a tool out there. All right, so I'm going to move on to the battery modeling software that we've built for NEM 3. Before I do so, any final questions or any topics you would like me to go back and cover, reiterate?
Ken asked, is there something specific that pushes an inverter to the point of failure?
There's a number of things that come into play there. It's hard to say there's a silver bullet for that answer there. It could be things along the line of, you know, a manufacturing issue on our end. It could be the age of the inverter, obviously, as well. So there's a number of things that can impact that. And we did have a quality issue. You know, a few years ago or so when we were building inverters, we weren't building them with the right materials, and we had some issues there. And so we've moved on to automotive, what we call automotive grade capacitors. And so if you think about an electric car out there on the road, you know, you're not seeing EVs pull over all the time because they have a central inverter that has gone down. And so we've taken a lot of the technology and built it into our product, and the failure rates on it are significantly below industry average now. So a lot of things that we've done to make sure that the product is a significantly more a higher quality product, especially when we move NEM 3 with batteries.
I have a quick question. I'm driving, so I can't type. Are we going to have literature that we can show homeowners with that guarantee about the every 2 days check, and if their system goes down, there's a fund they can apply towards, so we can show that to homeowners versus just saying, "Hey, we get to do this"?
Yeah, Jonathan put a link in the chat if you're able to access that to the knowledge base where all this is discussed up there. You know, we are essentially funding the program for Powur as far as, you know, the downtime credit and all that. It's at Powur's discretion on how and when that gets paid out. But, you know, we just wrote Powur a check for Q1 recently. And so it's, I think last quarter it was probably somewhere around $50,000 in that fund from last quarter. So the more you sell Solaredge, the more protection we can offer in that regard. But yeah, there's some details in that link there.
And the PowerCare warranty page and graphics says active monitoring coming soon. So I just speak to it or show one of these article pages when I do sales as well. Good.
All right. Any final questions before we move on here?
Looks like you're good.
Great. All right. So before I jump in here, I'd love to open it up to the group. Any thoughts on how it's gone so far? Any challenges that you're seeing out there? Quoting systems, knowing how many batteries. Is that a common challenge that we're seeing out there? Have you found a way of addressing that to make sure that, you know, you're sizing the amount of batteries to the production and consumption essentially? Any feedback there from the group that you anyone like to share?
Kind of referring to NEM 3 or just sizing in general or backup?
Yeah, we've heard some challenges out there with, you know, how many batteries, how do I size it against how much my home is consuming? You know, and so, you know, we at Solaredge, we have, you know, what we're calling a battery design and modeling tool that we built. We've always had a designer tool where, you know, free of charge, a sales rep could go and build a design. And so that's a big chunk of this, but what we've added now is the ability of not only building a PV system, but ultimately modeling that PV system as well. And so let me see here. And so what this system is designed to do is, and again, this will all be inserted into the Powur Vision tool, essentially. We're going to go in there, we're going to build the PV system. And so you're going to go in there, you can select your utility, what rate they're on, ultimately, you know, what their export rate is going to be when they go solar as well. And so what that's going to do then is that we've basically built all the different export charts into the software here. So if you click radar review here, you'll get to see sort of like, how are we modeling this? So in this case right here, obviously in September, as we talked about earlier, you know, between 6 and 8 o'clock, it's more advantageous to export that energy. And so the modeling tool is going to take into that account. And so what we'll see here as we look at these 4 systems that I built here is that, you know, you have a choice when you're building it with the software. Is you can either go smaller on the PV side with more batteries, and it's going to show a better return sometimes. So I'll get to that here in a second, but ultimately, just to kind of go through it step by step here, you know, we've one of the challenges I think most reps have seen out there is I don't know how much my homeowner is going to consume and what that profile may look like. And so we've built different profiles here for you. And so there's some standard ones that you can choose from whether, you know, it's family with school age children. And so that'll show the curve of how they consume their energy. So we're making assumptions, and we've done this by modeling, you know, through the monitoring portal, all the sites that we have out there. There's different ones, you know, families with infants, retirees, or somebody working from home. And as you can see, it changes the curve of that consumption profile. You're also welcome to create a custom profile as well if you'd like. And so if there's, you know, you can go and pull up your SoCal Edison, for instance, utility bill, and you can see how many kilowatt hours this homeowner consumed by month. So you can do it by offset, or you can do it by kilowatt hours. So that's one that most people haven't been using too often. It's generally going to be one of these 5. Or if you happen to have the green button data, you can actually upload that here. And so we'll take that long Excel file, and the software will automatically crunch those numbers to create a consumption profile that is unique to that homeowner. I'm not going to go through a lot of this here. This, you know, as far as a designer, a training on how to design the systems themselves. But ultimately, we have like I said, a full design software here as well, where you can go build the modules on the roof. You can select how many modules. So like if you wanted, in this case, I have 4 different proposals up here. So I just built one, and then I copy pasted essentially, and then I could, you know, add or subtract modules accordingly. Mainly here, going to focus on the battery side of things. So we can basically model things with backup power or without backup power. And, you know, we're going to actually get as fine-tuned and granular on the data by saying, you know, if we're going to use backup power, how much of that backup reserve? So if we're going to say, because the system is for backup, and we want to make sure, like as Jonathan's system showed, that there's a 20% reserve, because we're trying to model consumption, that means that we're going to leave 20% of the energy in the battery all the time. And so instead of having 10 kilowatt hours available, we're only going to have 8 now, because we're going to leave 20% for a backup reserve. So all this is being factored into the modeling of the financials on this. So for this example, it's a self-consumption system. You know, here's your electrical design. Nothing to really note on here. As it slowly loads. But what it's going to show you here is sort of the oversizing the system, how many inverters based on the modules that were selected, how much DC power, and how many PV modules. So we built this with 400 watt Q cell modules and a 7.6 kilowatt Solaredge energy hub. Here's the fun part here. So you can put all your costs in here. This system, we're rolling in at a high rate of $5 a watt, and a cost for a single battery at $13,000. So whatever you need to add in there as well, you know, if you had to add a main panel upgrade and all that, that'll certainly be available as a custom item here. If you're doing backup, you would add that here as well. And again, this will all the technology here is going to be built into Vision once you get through the API integration piece. All right, so if you recall earlier, I talked a lot about how basically, you know, the advantages that we're going to offer are not only higher efficiency, but clipping avoidance and the ability to export more energy out of the battery in this peak export windows. We call those power hours. So from 6 to 8 in September, depending on the utility, again, you can export at $3 plus per kilowatt hour, depending on the utility. So all that is now being calculated. And so this system here is a 18 panel system with one single battery. And so we're talking here about how much we're self-consuming and how much of that self-consumption is coming from the batteries. As we scroll down here, now we're going to start modeling some of the financials here. And, in this system here, we're showing, again, a 7.6 kilowatt inverter, 18 panels, and one single battery. And it's a payback of $8, or I'm sorry, 8.8 years. Now, please note, this is a cash system. You had to build any leasing or PPA or anything like that into this. It's just to keep it simple, a cash deal. So the numbers are obviously not, accurate if it was going to be a system that was financed or obviously a Sodova type loan. But for cash deal, the point is that we're going to talk about how these payback periods can change by, reducing the module count and adding more batteries, or the other way around. And so what I want to call this out here real quickly. So again, this is a 18 panel system with one battery on it. And, we built what we call a smart battery algorithm. So when a homeowner buys a system, a Solaredge system, the technology in the background is going to basically say, based on this time of day, this time of year, or I'm sorry, this time of month, this hour of the day, is it more advantageous to self-consume this energy in my battery right now, or is it more advantageous to export it? And so what you're seeing here is that basically the homeowner's getting a return on this system of nearly $14,000 through that smart battery algorithm. And so what it's saying is basically, as you scroll down here, if you look here, so it's a single battery, right? And so if you look at the production of the system, it's nearly 12 megawatt hours, and it's almost exactly the same amount of consumption side. Because we only have one battery though, we're exporting nearly as much energy as we're importing. And so if you think about what happens, if you have a homeowner who is, let's say, consuming 10 kilowatt hours in those peak windows where you can export at a high rate, you're effectively saying, I'm going to buy power in the peak window from 6 to 8 at, let's say, $3 a kilowatt hour. I'm also at the same time, I'm going to sell power back to the grid at $3 in those peak rates, but I also have to now import energy as well, because I'm still needing energy to power my house. And so I'm selling power back to the grid at $3, but in my case, I would be importing at the same time for 55 cents a kilowatt hour. So I don't have the full advantage of those export in that case, because it's sort of a net effect of it. And so ultimately, what we'll show you here now, just to run through it on a granular level here, is a chart showing how much of the energy is self-consumed above this line. If this system was designed and there was clipped energy, it would show you how much of the system was projected to clip. And then it will also show you a little pop out here that said how much of the energy was absorbed from the smart battery there too. So you get to see basically the benefit of the oversizing. Now here's the fun part. All right, so we're at a 18 panel with a 10 kilowatt hour battery. The bill offset comes out to about 78%. The monthly bill, the homeowner would still be paying $74.04 to the utility in this case. That's in year one. And we could get down to the numbers here. We could talk about, one note here, we do the ITC built into this. You can build that chip in, any other battery incentives that you need to as well. But this is sort of the schedule, if you will, on what the return would be to the homeowner. So we talked about 8.8 years on the return on this system. After that 8.8 year period, there's a 5% utility escalator built in, then obviously the homeowner is saving that much money over time. All right, let's jump around here now. So again, we have one battery on this system. Let's go to two batteries now. So this is the same exact system, just duplicated, and I've added a second battery. When we add that second battery now, what we're seeing is the bill offset went all the way up to over 100% right now. This also means that now the homeowner's bill has gone away. And technically, they're at a negative bill, which is kind of weird to think about, right? But I'll tell you why that happens. It's because of this right here. By adding that second battery, we can export more energy to the grid now And ultimately, the amount that the homeowner gets out of that smart battery algorithm now has doubled. It went from about $14,000 to almost $31,000. So effectively, by adding more batteries to the same system size, we're able to offer a quicker return to the homeowner now, 8.3 years. So we just chiseled off 5 months off of the payback period by adding a more costly battery system. Pretty fun, right? All right, now let's talk a little bit about, what happens if we want to actually sell a smaller PV system. So in this case, what I've done here is we're modeling a 14 panel system. Oh, there we go. Sorry, my system kind of froze up there, guys. So 14 panels with one single battery, effectively with a smaller PV system, we're nearly at the same exact amount of offset as a larger PV system. 78%. We took 4 modules off the roof with a singular battery. Now we're at 73% offset. $14,000 back from the smart battery. So if you look at that, we're actually adding more value now. And again, this is all based on a self-consumption profile too, which can change. I'm going to turn my camera off here. I think I'm running out of some bandwidth here, so bear with me a sec here.
Jason, can you maybe pull up the years for payoff on these 2 other ones?
Yep, 8.1.
8.
Smaller PV system with a battery.
And the 2 battery system? 8.3.
Yep.
And Rick and Jordan, I think, are a little, our words are a little bit off here. So are you saying that these systems can have some self-consumption? You could pull from the battery to the house, as well as the battery is exporting intelligently during certain times? Are you saying that
Yep.
battery's smart enough to do both?
Correct. So let's imagine a scenario where, between 6 and 8 o'clock, a homeowner would, typically consume 10 kilowatt hours. If you have a 10 kilowatt hour battery in the wall, that means that you're effectively exporting, 10 kilowatt hours to the grid to get the maximum return rate, of $3, let's say, kilowatt hour. That's how much the utility will pay for those 10 kilowatt hours. But at the same time now, the home still needs to, it needs energy, right, to power the house. And so that's where ultimately this smart battery algorithm comes in, and it's designed here. We're effectively saying that, instead of having 10 kilowatts to export and then obviously buying back 10 kilowatt hours, we have 20 kilowatt hours to export, and we only need 10 of those now to self-consume to power the house. So effectively, the one battery powers the house, the other battery is just dumped into the grid for maximum return. So we're not buying and selling, we're taking one battery in and doing what it's supposed to do. One of them is being used to power the house, the other one is being used to export to the grid. Does that make sense? Did I cover that okay?
So with 2 batteries, you can have 1 and 1. Can one battery do both modes, or no? One battery has to be programmed to one mode.
The whole system is designed to do it automatically. And so there's no program required. Effectively, it's going to say, based on this time of the day, this time of the year, this hour, we have X amount of kilowatt hours in the battery. We have to consume X amount of kilowatt hours as well. And it's going to effectively say, okay, great. I'm going to basically power the house and export to the grid at the same time if it is advantageous at this point in time. And so it's a back-end software that comes built into basically the My Solaredge app. So the homeowner would go in, they would select their utility just like we did earlier. And then the system would automatically know, based on those export schedules, is it more advantageous to export this energy or not? And if you have more kilowatt hours on the side of the wall, more batteries on the side of the wall, then that's really where that comes to play, because ultimately now, instead of trying to export 10 kilowatt hours and get to, if you think about what that means is, if you're dumping a 10 kilowatt hour battery, the homeowner can make $30 a day in export. If you have 2 batteries, that is now $60. And there's a lot that comes into play, because you have not only system sizing on the PV side, but ultimately also the dynamic of like you need enough PV sometimes to charge the batteries and all that. And this software will capture all that for you.
Do you know if like the LG battery or Tesla battery or microinverter battery, like, do you know if they have that type of technology and software at this time?
As far as I'm aware of, nobody has this quite yet. And if I'm wrong, I'd love to know. So if anyone out here on the call has actually heard this before, it would be great to hear. But my understanding is not yet.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. That's pretty wild, guys, just so you know. I mean, if the battery is that intelligent to facilitate that, that's quite an ROI and a value add if we're getting this correctly.
Yeah, and go ahead.
Yeah, I know some of the competitions rolling out the virtual power plant modes specifically, which are going to allow you to basically dump it to the panel to be able to capture that. But this modeling, I've never seen anybody else actually have this level of modeling around the value add to be able to show to a homeowner. It's more of just like, oh, that's nice. We're going to have a virtual power plant.
Right.
Yep.
And I feel like we're all on different worlds with these terms, Jason, too, like backup, self-consumption, even VPP, he's referring to virtual power plant.
Right.
My understanding of VPP, that's an agreement between the utility and the homeowner or the solar company where the utility can take power at a certain time and the homeowner gets reimbursed for that. VPP to me, I think you're like referring to load shifting where you can export at certain times to get paid. Whereas VPP, I think is a whole nother program, but we got to study acronyms on the next market development.
Yeah, I mean, typically what we would associate with the VPP as a program, for anyone who is actually on the call in Colorado right now, we have a new program that's launching in Excel Energy, where this is a true VPP program where when you sign up with Excel Energy in Colorado, the utility will pay you $3,000 per battery as an incentive. And what they now want to say is like, because we're paying you all that money, we want to have access to your battery under these parameters.
Correct.
So I think that's probably what I consider to be the traditional understanding what a VPP is. Load shifting is somewhat effectively what we're doing in September in these, what we're calling power hours. We're basically saying that, you know, we're going to dump energy to the grid because it's advantageous at that point in time. So they are close, but ultimately one's more of a utility rate structure, the other one's more of a utility incentive.
How about up here in the Northeast where we have this connected solutions and they drain the batteries in the winter, in the summertime only for certain hours? Will this capture up in New England as well?
Are you asking about the modeling and the software?
Yeah, is that going to be built in for up here? Because we have something called connected solutions. They pay $275 a kilowatt out. I mean, for a megawatt. And you know, it's only certain times of the year and it's only certain hours of the day. Will this show that then, so we can show the value of batteries here with that program?
I'll have to get back to you on that. I'm not quite sure. The answer should be yes. I'm just not quite sure if the modeling has been done in all markets quite yet. Now, if it's a utility rate structure, then yes, because we're using a standard third party to do all that. Then, for instance, right now we're actually working with Powur to model the idea of doing a consumption battery system in Texas, where obviously the rates have gotten kind of wonky. Some have lost NEM agreements and all that too. So the cool thing about this is, you know, NEM 3 has really kicked a lot of this into focus, and the roadmap dealing with the software is pretty long, and it's going to continue to grow from here. So if it's not covered now, then ultimately, yes, the answer will be too.
I just want to say that all these nuances that are market specific, like VPP or load shifting or buybacks, guys, make sure to attend your local market development meeting, ask the leaders there. Cami and the marketing team and corporate is working with our partners like Solaredge to go on to those market development calls. And so stay tuned for that. Check the coverage map, because this can get very specific depending on the market. And we only have a few minutes left today. And of course, make sure to take your battery certification training in university. And Jason Kemp, do people have access to this? Do they have to sign up for the Solaredge training and then get access to this? Or
so if you have an account with Solaredge, you've gone through the training through what we call our Edge Academy, then ultimately that same account would apply here. I was actually on the call with Jordan on Friday, Jordan Shaw, and I think, Jordan, if you could clarify from your experience there, if you don't have an account, you can go in and create one. Actually, you know what? Let me type in the link here.
And I know our knowledge base article has info to be an Edge Academy member as well.
So that's a link to the designer tool. If there's any of you that want to actually go play with it and design systems and maybe model it against other software, for instance, here is a link to a YouTube video that ultimately will help you walk through. It's a short little tutorial on how to build these systems in our designer tool there.
So did Dean give you an ETA on API integration at this point? What are we looking at?
So I just kicked over the information to him on Friday of last week. He told me based on other developmental things ahead, that's probably a 4 to 6 week process on Powur's end. So hopefully we can find ways of accelerating that. But ultimately, it's on the roadmap, and we're just working through some of the details to officially get the integration piece pushed forward. So basically what we're saying is, like, we don't want to compete with Vision. We don't, because we do have our own proposal tool as well. So it's taking all the information in the background there and dumping it into a proposal tool. So, you could present this to a homeowner and all that. But what we're telling Powur is that, we built the modeling software and the smart battery algorithm. Take it, it's yours to use. Just send us the inputs of effectively, how much PV, what the costs are, et cetera, and we'll do all the modeling on the back end.
Great. You got to have the tools if you're a Solar Pro or Tier 3 like this. I just logged into the portal, actually, Jason, as well, the designer link you put in the chat there. And some of us even use Open Solar as well. They have a pretty decent modeling system as well. And like Jonathan Budd always says, with NEM 3, our design tool solo, this industry, it's going to be bumpy for a while, guys, but I'm sure by end of summer, we're going to kick major butt here. All right, what else we have, Jason?
Well, that's all I had on my end. So I'll open it up to the group here. If there's any questions, anything you'd like me to run through again. Again, this is all free of charge, and the designer tool, as well as the proposal tool. And so, is there anything anyone would like me to run through again? Any final questions here?
Like I shared in the beginning, I think your guys' monitoring app is just super cool. Friendly reminder, you can download my Solaredge app right now on your phone in Android or iOS, and there's demo sites. So just because you don't have it on your own home, you can literally go through demo sites, show them how cool it is, show them the battery. It's a great tool when you're presenting. So make sure to do that as well.
That's a great call there. I think that's a great way of also leaving behind something for the homeowner. When you show them how to access these demo sites, there's one, I think it's called San Jose Demo. If you have the homeowner download the app, point them in that direction, it's a great leave behind, because I think it sort of gets a homeowner excited about what they're buying, because they don't interact necessarily with the actual equipment, right? It's more the app. And so if they're able to sort of see, how the energy flows from the PV modules into the car or the battery or to the grid, I think it's a great leave behind to get them excited about what they're buying. I just saw your message there in the chat. I'm actually going to be out there with Rick in Colorado and Chris on Thursday, and so we'll be discussing this here. For anybody there in Colorado, if you would be interested in an in-person training as we launch this Excel Energy incentive, I think it's going to be June 14th. We'll probably be out that way, maybe around June 12th or so, to do a training. So we'll keep you all posted there. All right, that's all I had on my end. Truly appreciate the invitation here and the time. If anyone else has any questions, as follow-up here, I'll put my email address in the chat, and feel free to reach out anytime.
Right on. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, all. Appreciate it.
That was awesome.
My pleasure.